Hey everyone, welcome back to J of All Trades. Today we are working on a bedroom in the basement. We've made the decision to soundproof this bedroom. Now, if you have teenagers, college students, university students, older kids, and or you just want a private space with reduced sound, this is definitely something you should consider when you're putting a bedroom together. And what I really want to show you today is one of the newer products that's out on the market to help with soundproofing. To me, it's one of the simplest ways to reduce noise, and that is a product called Sonopan. You can see right here. We're going to go through a little bit about this product and go through some of the straightforward steps to do the install as we move forward with this bedroom build. Stay tuned. Now let me mention, we're just showing you one option here. There's a few options for soundproofing that also work well, that are commonly used. I've seen double 5/8 thick drywall with a product in between called green glue, resilient channel, where you mount a metal channel to the studs to leave about a 1-inch pocket between the stud and the drywall, and it really helps to diffuse the sound. The other method I've seen that's somewhat common is a double wall system, where you stagger your spacing on your joists. One wall may have 24-inch spacing and the other one may have 16, and they're staggered. You'll have drywall, 1/2-inch drywall between each of those walls, so the sound will have a more difficult time. Of course, stuffing insulation into your wall cavity is another method. So we've chosen that, and then we're taking it one step further with the Sonopan. But just letting you know, there's a few options out there to explore. I'd recommend choosing the option that feels best for you. Let's take a closer look at what Sonopan actually is. 4x8 sheet, 3/4 inch thick material made out of recycled wood fibers. So this is a recycled product, Canadian made. Can be available in the US as well. It's sold in Canada through Home Depot, and I believe that if you ask to place a special order, they will arrange to ship an order down to the US for you. So that's great news as well. Notice that there is a dimpled finish designed that way to help diffuse the sound. It actually absorbs sound, but is designed to disperse that wave as well. So 4x8 sheet, 3/4 of an inch thick, fairly rigid material. I've also noticed that when cutting it, there's a couple different methods to cut it, but it is a little more resistant to cutting. It's a bit slower of a cut than drywall. Also, when compared to drywall, it's a little bit lighter of a product as well, about 10 pounds lighter per sheet. So handling this product is actually not too bad. 25 pounds. Working with it overhead is a little bit easier. Being rigid helps, but yeah, touch lighter than drywall, so a little bit easier to maneuver, especially if you're working on a project by yourself. Just wanted to show you what steps we've already taken. We've got our framing up, as you can see, 16-inch centers. Bulkheads are built where necessary. We've got our telepost integrated into the wall. We'll make a note of this for later. If we want to have any adjustment here, we're going to have a bit of an access to that area. So this is what we started with. You can see I've already got one of the Sonopan sheets in place. We'll go through that in detail for you on that install. This is a mineral wool product that's in the walls right here, and you don't have to go with product. This is called Safe and Sound. Regular fiberglass batt insulation will be just fine. This is designed to also reduce sound transfer, but not necessary. The fiberglass batt in the cavity, just to slow down the transfer of sound, will be just fine. This mineral wool works really well, and we've already got a fairly quiet space to start with. All right, guys, as we like to do often, let's just go over some of the simple tools you'll need to go ahead with this installation. Recommend coarse thread drywall screw, but a little bit longer, 1 5/8. Now, this is versus 1 1/4 for standard 1/2-inch drywall. Remember, you're working with a thicker material, so you want to have that bite approximately 1 inch into your studs. So a little longer screw to mount this stuff, and then again a slightly longer screw, 2 inch, to go ahead and mount your drywall layer. The drill, of course, with a Phillips screw bit for your drywall screws, Torx. You may encounter also square head Robertson. Cutting the product, a couple different options. I like the H1 Olfa knife, utility knife. Standard drywall saw just for cutting out utility boxes and whatnot, making any sort of notches or what have you, works really well. As I mentioned earlier, a little slower than cutting through regular drywall, but this knife works well. Marks great with a Sharpie, so make sure you got a couple Sharpies on hand. Of course, you need a tape measure, and what I'd really recommend is a drywall T-square, just to make sure you've got a nice straight cutting edge to cut on. Works really well. The beauty again of this being a dimpled product is that when you're making measurements and you're lining up your cuts, you can basically follow a row of these dimples. They're pretty much dead straight on here, so kind of handy in that respect. Just one final optional tool that also works, guys, is a small circular saw. This is a 6-inch Milwaukee. A little bit on the messy side, we'll show you that, but if you have one, it is a usable option. So before we set up a tripod, and we'll speed up the install portion of the video a little bit here, let's show you what we've already done. We've got one 4x8 sheet on one of the bedroom walls here, mounted much like drywall. As you can see, 1 5/8 screw, dimple it also just like drywall, countersink it a little bit. So there's an example of a sheet. And again, installing it, make sure you're spacing it off the floor. In this case, I've got a 3/4 inch piece of material in there. Here's an example of starting to wrap one of the bulkheads. Now in this case, we've got some drain plumbing, 3-inch drain pipe here. So perfect use for it. This being a bedroom, we may have a bed over in this area of the room, and I don't want to hear flushing toilets and plumbing in action. So we've got this wrapped in the product. We're going to wrap these other bulkheads up here for HVAC and a little bit more of a plumbing line as well. So we're going to take care of that with the Sonopan too. Here is an example on the other side of the room where we've got the Sonopan layer on the wall already, and here is your drywall layer on top with the 2-inch screws. We've also gone ahead and fully done our ceiling. We just got a tiny little bit left to finish off here. Here's the Sonopan sheet underneath the drywall. 1 5/8 screws holding up Sonopan, and again 2-inch screws on the drywall, sandwiching everything together. Here's an example of a rough cut for a LED light. What we've done here is a 6-inch diameter hole for a 4-inch light. That way there's a 1-inch lip of drywall or hold the clips on for the light, and the Sonopan is fairly tight up to those clips. Now we're not trying for 100% blocking of the sound here, the sound transfer. So having insulation up in the hole above the light, they don't generate a ton of heat. So again, there's an example of the Sonopan and drywall layer. Also mention that the type of LED pucks we're using, they have a junction box that mounts up. And in this case, I've got them mounted to the floor joist, and then just a single wire that comes down and plugs in. So really handy. You don't have to have two 14-2 wires coming down through your drywall hole. So for in this application, you know, I actually prefer that setup versus having the type of LED light where you have the integral junction box for these LEDs. Okay, let's get you right in here. We need to make a cut to finish off the one bedroom wall here. So we're looking at 15 3/8 for this piece. So again, T-square comes in really handy. So set your T-square at 15 3/8. Make sure you're happy with the way it lines up. I like to draw myself just a little reference line here with a Sharpie. Just mark that all the way down to the bottom. All right, that way if your square wanders a bit, you can correct it here. So grab your H1, a utility knife, cutting 3/4 inch material on a bit of an angle, so works really well with a couple of blade sections. That's all you need, nothing more than that. Cutting it vertically like this on a pile of sheets, I like to put a chunk of drywall behind it, and that way I'm not cutting through into my other layers. So real straightforward. We're going to line ourselves up on our mark, and when you're happy with that, we're just going to start scoring this product One thing you notice right away, as soon as you start cutting through, I'm not pushing very hard here, but my blade is starting to plunge through the material. This does not cut like drywall, where you make your cut and you go through the material and then you snap your sheet. This, when cutting with a utility knife, this will have to be cut all the way through. So it takes a few extra pulls to get your blade through to the back of the material, and I can feel myself cutting on that drywall. Again, keep this lined up. And once you have that cut established, you can just run your knife straight down. Move your edge out of the way. I just want to show you, it takes a little more effort to cut through it, but honestly, this is the method that I prefer. And you can certainly put this sheet on the ground and cut it on the ground if you feel like it's easier for you. The other thing I'll mention is that don't expect this product to cut clean like drywall. You are going to get some residual material, a little bit of roughness on the edge, as you can see here. It does not cut and break just like a sheet of drywall, but you can take off all these fluffs, and you know what, for what it is, it's a pretty clean cut. But when you work with it, just expect a little bit of leftover material to end up on the floor. All right, grab our piece. Let's see how we fit. We've got our spacing on the floor. Yeah, no problem. What you can do if you have any gaps like this, you're looking for a theater room or something, you want it fully soundproofed, you can fill these gaps with acoustical sealant. In our case, we're just looking to quiet down a bedroom. So there we go. That's a better fit. That's a pretty tight gap right there. So we have our piece in place. Happy with the cut. And much like fastening drywall, just going to grab your 1 5/8" screw and fasten that on to your studs. Dimple the screw heads a little bit. Now we don't need a ton of screws in here because we are going to be coming through with a drywall cover. So it doesn't really have to be super fastened, you know, every 12 inches like you would a sheet of drywall. I'll just put one more in the bottom here to hold this corner. And that is it. As you can see, drywall screws have no problem. We're nice and tight here. Got a good seam. Again, could fill this in with acoustical sealant if we were going for 100% soundproof, but is there such a thing? This is already leaps and bounds quieter than what the standard framed wall is with drywall on it. I can hear it. You can actually feel it in the room. So there you go, mounting a cut piece. One thing I will mention to you guys, what do you do with outlet boxes, smoke alarm, whatnot? You can extend your outlet boxes, or if you have enough room, which you typically do on an outlet box to fasten into your stud, the box has tabs typically that line it up for the 1/2 inch thickness of drywall. Simply bring the box out a little bit further. In this case, the new thickness we're going through is 1 1/4 inches of material. There we are, 1 1/4 inches. So I brought the box out on the stud to give me my 1 1/4 inches to the edge of the box, and I'm simply ready to go. This will be flush with the edge of drywall like it typically would be. That's how I chose to handle it. You can get extensions for these boxes. They are fairly pricey though. If you have the room on the outlet box, on the junction box, just pull it out and mount it a little less shallow. These tabs simply bend out of the way, and that takes care of that. Now I don't have all the screws like we normally have in drywall here, so before I go ahead and hang this next sheet, I'm going to make myself some reference marks so I know exactly where the studs are. So here we are installing a piece on the long bedroom wall, and in this case we've got a couple of outlets in this wall to deal with. So there's a couple ways you can do this. You can fasten the sheet on and then use a rotary cutout tool to cut out the outlets. You can also do this by measuring out the boxes, horizontal and vertical dimensions, and then marking your sheet. And of course, we're cutting the Sonopan a little more of a rough cut than we would for drywall. I'm going to opt for just the measurement and then the rough cut, being that these boxes are 1.25 inches away from the studs. I don't want to break any more of the Sonopan sheet than I have to. So we're going to go ahead and take measurements and mark the boxes out. So we have our measurements marked out here on the sheet, and I'm just going to use my T-square, which is really handy to mark these dimensions out, top and bottom. Again, a rough cut hole, a little bigger than it needs to be, but we're not trying to fit this that tight. It's just meant to go around around the box. So we'll go ahead and grab our drywall knife here, and much like cutting drywall, just plunge your knife into the sheet. Go ahead and cut your 4 sides. There we go. Not too bad at all. The second outlet is really close to the end of this sheet, so because we want to cut a bigger hole here, I will just cut it right through to the end of the sheet, instead of trying to leave like 1 inch of material here. Okay, we got our holes cut. Normally you wouldn't have the outlets in here, but we were using this room prior to having it done. Okay, so I mentioned that there's a couple ways to cut this, so I will show you how to rip along a sheet with a circular saw. So this can be used too. I just find it dusty, messy, and not quite as, you know, the utility knife is just fine for cutting this stuff. I'll just throw a little mask on just so I don't breathe in any of this dust. Okay guys, you see it's totally doable. It actually cuts really quickly with a circular saw, but a lot of dust and kind of flimsy material. So what I did was I clamped a straight 2x4 onto the Sonopan just as a guide, and actually it helped make the board a little bit rigid in between the 2 sawhorses. So definitely another way to cut it, especially if you're looking for speed. A little dusty though, a little tough to see your mark on the saw, as you can see, but it definitely does the trick. quiet, eerily quiet actually. Once we get the drywall on, there'll be a little less absorbing of the sound, and it'll feel more like a regular space, but it is quiet. I just want to mention to you guys that typically you line this with either a PVC return or a drywall jamb. We're gonna apply the Sonopan into this window jamb. It's all spray foamed, of course, but I'm going to use this as a break in between the drywall layer. We've got more than enough room around the hinges and the window area to install this properly, so that's what we're going to do. That's a wrap, guys, on the Sonopan install. Everything is in place. Wrapped our window jamb, which I'm really happy with. Gonna clad this in drywall. Lots of room for the window to operate. Threw a leftover sheet into a walk-in closet here just to separate that from a utility room. Closet opening, door opening, all done. We rough cut these around these boxes. Didn't have to be that precise like we will with the drywall. And now, if you want to go ahead and you want to fill up some of the gaps that you've got, go ahead and just grab a can of spray foam and fill the gaps. Now, it should be the minimal expanding stuff. You don't want it to blast out. You want it to come out pretty slow. So we're just going to shoot some in these gaps here. I will trim this off later. Not a huge deal, but you know what? We might as well make it as good as we can here. Just a couple cuts that were a little bit off. We've got a spot up here that I mismeasured, so we're just gonna fill that gap. Comes out nice and slow. Get this side. And we'll just cut this back off after, and we should be perfect. Need a little bit on this one here. So yeah, simple way just to fill in any gaps you're not happy with. All right, that's gonna do it for this video. Hopefully you guys learned something about Sonopan. Really easy product to work with, very straightforward. Turned out really well. I'm quite pleased. Again, available at Home Depot in Canada, and you can place an order and have it shipped down to the US. So just a note on that. But yeah, if you guys like this video, please hit that like button. So don't forget to subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.